Hey everyone, my name is Noor. I created Noorie's Lightbulb. It's all about finding the light bulb moments in life. I am a former peer ambassador for 42nd Street, and I heard about this project through like the channels of 42nd Street.
Hi, my name is Jane Claire Bradley. I am a writer, workshop facilitator, therapist, and a lot of my writing is exploring the experience of young people, which is why I was really excited to be part of this project. And I love 42nd Street and have admired the work that they've done for years. So getting to collaborate with Noor on this project has been amazing. Noor, do you want to say a little bit about how we ended up on a zine? Because I remember our very first conversation. I think it's fair to say that from the beginning you felt like you were quite confident it was going to be sort of language based, word based. But I know we talked about whether that was going to be a performance, sort of spoken word, or something more published, almost something that someone could have and sort of read and explore and reflect on in their own time. Maybe you could say a little bit about how it ended up being a zine.
Yes, thank you so much, Jane. So through our first conversation, we had thought about different kind of materials that we could do, perhaps video, perhaps a poem, perhaps spoken word. But when I kind of got more resources on what young people's voice are, I read a few zines. I kind of felt more comfortable with creating a zine. I had access to like so many wonderful books about like powerful women, inspiring people all over the world, inspiring people who've kind of fought through struggles through their life. And I just thought a zine would be quite accessible to like young people. Um, and I just thought like I had this image of like a young person perhaps picking this up in school, in the school library, and that image, it just was so powerful for me because I could see myself like that when I was perhaps like in year seven or year eight in high school. So I really wanted to pick up on that image.
I totally hear that. And it's funny, I know I was just saying to you just before we started recording that I actually saw the finished version of the zine for the first time earlier today. Shared it with a friend of mine, and the first thing that friend said was, I wish I'd had this when I was at school. Like, that was their immediate, really passionate reaction, was that like excitement of what that could have meant to them at that age. And I'm wondering what is it that you hope people get from it? What would you like them to take away from it?
Um, I think, I think, I think one thing that I would like people to take away from it is, putting yourself out there, pursuing your passions is like not as scary and it's not as selfish as it once seemed. Um,
Mm.
I the kind of questions in the book, it prompts the young person to look inwards and kind of develop that kind of self-confidence, develop their self-esteem to kind of know what they want, know what their worth is. So that's what I really hope a young person can get from it, knowing that their no dream is too small. Um, yeah, I mean that there were a few issues for me, like what kind of what kind of like production I want to create, because as I mentioned before with the spoken word, I think for me I kind of see that as a very um I feel like once I develop my voice through like writing and through words, I'll be able to speak like a spoken word poetry. So I feel like I wanted to create that first step for somebody else as well, to hopefully become more confident to use their voice in different ways.
Mm. I think there's something about the zine as well that feels, as you say, accessible, but also it's quite intimate almost. Absolutely, as you say, there is real vulnerability to sharing spoken word pieces, because as you know, that's one of the things that I do. I'm a performer, and yet that idea of someone being able to be in their own space reading your work, almost that idea of like you release it into the world and then people are going to have their own experience of it independent of you, whether that is a digital PDF that they read on their phone in their bedroom, whether that's the physical printed zine that they find in their school library. As you say, that idea, that there's something about that feels weirdly intimate to me that I really like, and I think is so powerful when you relate that to the content, with the content all being about that kind of supporting someone to really trust themselves and develop that courage and develop that confidence in their own voice, that intimate experience feels really fitting to me.
Thank you.
So do you want to speak a bit about the process of how it came together?
Yeah, so if I start from the very beginning, the very inception, I was like in the middle of my first year exams, and I was receiving these emails from Fliss about like this kind of project, this cool project, and I wasn't sure if I like if I understood it. I wasn't really sure about if I could do something like this, something because you know. I've always wanted to I've always wanted to break into like the creative writing industry, but it's always been I don't know, there's always been some kind of barrier for me. Like I don't know if it's like an internal barrier. So yeah, so finally after my exams, I thought, I wanted to speak to Fliss, I want to get involved. And then actually coming into the project, and I remember Jane's a session, and it was all about the five senses, and it was all about imagining you're on like this beautiful, beautiful place. And I think I remember imagining a beach. So it was like, what could you see? What could you hear? What could you smell? And I really, really loved that session. So I was so happy when I got matched with Jane. I was like, oh, like I'm so happy. I was like reading all her LinkedIn, like fangirling. So like I think when, someone has given you like such an opportunity to work with someone who's also so committed, so passionate, I think, that really motivated me to work hard at this zine. Seeing someone like believe in you, take their time out to kind of mentor you, I really, really like value that experience. And, I believe that this scene, I think it will definitely open me up to write more things and publish more things and get my voice more in the world. And it was because of this first like zine that I've created. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So the process was quite hard because even though I've only really written like about 3-4 intimate pieces, it took me so long because I was getting to that place of like vulnerability. I was getting to that place of, going back to those like kind of difficult experiences, and like, putting them on paper is different when you kind of explain it to your friend, or just think about it. But it's really different seeing it on paper and editing it and revisiting it and making it a bit sharper, and also sharing that with somebody and then sharing that with the world. It was quite hard to get my head around in the beginning, like, this is actually going to go out to everybody. But now, like, I feel so much more confident. Thank you.
Yes, you've created something so good, and I think that just really speaks to your integrity and your thoughtfulness, that it took that process to get to that point of feeling really clear and really authentic in what you wanted to communicate. And I think that the fruits of that process are really in the finished zine. And to go back to what you were just saying there about the process, like, I also remember you in that first session that we did. Now, we didn't meet, but we had this sort of chat box where we were interacting, and I felt so lucky when we were matched, because right from the very start, like, your passion was really obvious, and your integrity, your thoughtfulness. And I think there's something that we sort of coincidentally, or props to the 42nd Street staff for matching us so thoughtfully, but it felt like our values and our politics were really aligned, and I got loads out of working with you and learning about your story. And then hopefully it felt like there were some bits that I could share that were useful to you in the sort of research and that kind of thing. So it felt really, really organic from that sense on my side. And
How was it for you, Jane?
The collaboration, brilliant, honestly, so nice, and so nice to get this experience of working one-on-one. I wasn't sure what it would be like digitally. I've done quite a lot of work with young people, but not necessarily in a one-on-one sort of setting on a creative project. So I've done sort of therapeutic work and things like that with young people one-on-one, and I've done creative work in a group setting. But getting to do this sort of real kind of development and see a project moving forward, and being able to collaborate with you and learn more about you has been fantastic, so rewarding. And I think going back to what you were saying there about the writing itself, that has been really enjoyable to see that take shape. And as you said there, that the pieces may be well formed, but the amount of thought and exploration that's gone into them really speaks to a longer journey. You know, there's a Mark Twain quote, I think it is, that writing a letter to his friend in whatever year, and the quote is, "I'm sorry this letter's so long, I didn't have time to write you a short one." So the thing is that like shorter pieces actually sometimes like contain whole worlds within them, and yet to like distill the wisdom and the texture and the multi-sensory experience of them down to kind of shorter form writing like is totally a skill in itself. So as to respond to what you were just saying about the sort of future in terms of your writing, I think you're off to a really strong start, and I'm really privileged to have like had a role in that with this project.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you. Should I talk about like how I've made it?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, so one of the questions, so every time, so me and Jane would meet, I think it was bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. Yeah, on like I think a Wednesday morning. And Jane would send me like so many like amazing like things to read, and like websites to look up and people to like follow on Instagram. And I remember like one of the questions she asked me, like it was like three kind of questions about like getting into like the creative mindset. It was what were like the three most kind of important experiences that have brought you here today? And that basically formed the foundation of my zine, because when I think back at it, like I think they're all like kind of like twists and turns in life. And you go into something, you go into something thinking one thing, and then it doesn't turn out the way.
16 hours.
Oh, sorry, that's my laptop. Sorry, I'll just say that briefly again. So yeah, so one of the questions was like what were like the three kind of main things that brought you where you are? And I went into something thinking that it wasn't something sorry, I went into something thinking that's what I wanted, and then it wasn't in the end. But reflecting upon it now, it was possibly like one of like such a good decision at the time, because like through like the kind of like the molding and like the kind of pushing through that experience, it's made me who I am today. So I can't remember what I was saying now. But yeah, I've completely forgot what I was saying. Shall we move?
Well, I feel like what you were saying there is really interesting, because it feels like the content of the zine, a real recurring key theme in it is about sort of what you've learned through these light bulb moments, and then how you've applied that learning, and what that learning has meant for you. And I think the word Flish used earlier before we started recording was sort of generous, like, and I completely agree with that it feels like there's a real generosity and compassion towards the reader in what you've developed, that this desire to kind of share your learnings and support someone else on their journey with what you've learned on yours. Would you agree?
Definitely. Yes, I definitely agree, definitely. Yeah. And like some of the experiences in the zine, it's just like really unfortunate now that they won't be offered as freely to other young people, such as going abroad with a project funded by the Manchester City Council. Like those kind of projects have been slashed now because of COVID, because of Brexit. So what I wanted to reiterate was that like listening to young people's voice now is actually needed more than ever, because opportunities have been kind of taken away from young people. What kind of society are we going to be living in 10-15 years time? The reason why like people like yourself have described me as like generous and open is because I had those wonderful experiences. And I was able to see like people from different backgrounds. They were like Portuguese, they were Hungarian, and I was able to see their kindness. I was able to see how much we have in common. We used to like chill at the beach like late at night. It was just so much fun, and those experiences I'll probably never have them again. But I was fortunate enough to have them. So I think now is the time to listen to young people and give them their power back. I like to think I am still young, but I can see how I can see how like the effects of this is affecting our younger generation today, who are perhaps not started university yet, perhaps not started college yet, and how like that kind of like fear and you know that they're kind of like scared of the government, what kind of policies are being put into place. They kind of know that opportunities are becoming less and less. So it's creating more of like a hostile environment for them. And I feel like the mental health crisis is just going to increase as we go more into the future.
Yeah, really insightful points there, and I totally agree that one of the other sort of key threads that I felt were really in our conversations and in the zine itself is this like real passion and commitment that you have to youth work and this real belief in the value of listening to young people. I feel that is so much part of your values, and I think it's really in the zine as well, and I really agree with what you just said. Like, it is so apparent with the kind of current austerity measures, with the current cuts, the mental health issues that we have in this country and beyond, that we do have a whole generation who are really struggling to use their voices or be supported in developing their voices, is maybe I should say, and to be listened to find those ways to be heard, because we do within the younger generation, exactly as you said, we have like so many people saying amazing things, like learning really amazing lessons, vocalizing really important points. We have youth leaders doing amazing activism, the recent Black Lives Matter momentum around that. So many of the real kind of change leaders within that were really young people leading it, and yet the amount of recognition and sort of credibility that those young people are given kind of in the wider mainstream is not always what it should be. I don't know if that's how you see it too, but certainly I think like the young people, despite having lots of opportunities taken away, are actually still doing really amazing things, like on shoestring budgets and hanging on by their fingernails in the wake of all these cuts, and yet are still doing really incredible things. I think, if we could get behind them and give them the attention and support and recognition they deserve, who only knows what that could accomplish. They're already doing it, but yet it's sometimes in the face of really complicated adversity.
Yeah. I definitely agree with all those points. I think, what you're saying about like the shoestring budgets, like I was definitely a part a part of that a few years ago, and like it's just so hard to like inspire people, you know, this kind of this kind of culture of like hostile, like young people being hostile towards each other. I remember when I was trying to get people involved, they were like, "Am I going to get paid? Am I going to get paid?" And then I was thinking, no, we're going to change the world, like that. Like, why is that not enough? And then when I was speaking to one of my friends, she did a year abroad in Iceland, and she was saying like how many opportunities were offered there to young people, and I was saying like over here, like as a young person, you have to like through volunteering, you're giving like your blood, sweat, tears, everything just to gain like a grain of rice, and it's something which needs to change.
Totally. And I think that's something you and I talked about in our conversations, is that when those opportunities are only there if you give your blood, sweat and tears for a grain of rice, then we're into that area of it only being available to certain people, that sort of privilege question around, not everyone is able to work for free. Not everyone is able, they might have be caring for parents or caring for siblings, or have their own sort of responsibilities at home, and if that support is not there, and that recognition of the different barriers that people face, that it gets into complicated territory if only certain people can access.
And I think that just that reflects our whole government. How many percentage went to Oxbridge, how many percentage are male, straight, from privileged backgrounds. So yeah, it's a big task, but it can be done.
I love that as well, that I feel in our work together you've been a really good reminder to me of that potential and of the importance of that like faith. I think it's just been so. I think the word inspirational is very, very overused, and yeah, I really would apply it to like our work together. That seeing your conviction and your commitment to the causes that you believe in has given me a kick up the backside to renew my own faith in humanity and the causes that I believe in. Like you've not only a role model to young people, but you're a role model to old jaded cynics like myself.
I think I'm gonna cry. That's so sweet.
So is there anything we've talked about kind of what you've learned over the period of your life so far being a real key theme of the zine? Is there anything that you want to pull out of what you've learned from this process?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is like, you're never too young. I've always kind of thought, doing like an MA, I'm a bit older, doing this kind of creative writing course, I should be focusing on like, more adult things, but then I've kind of learned that no, you can do everything, you can and I'm not entirely sure. Like I think I've learned so many things I can't even remember them right now. But I think one of the things which I've learned throughout this process is like this whole notion of like gaslighting and like manipulative kind of actions, and it's kind of like framed a lot in like relationships between like man and woman, but it's very much evident in like family relationships, societal relationships, going for like jobs and careers. So I think through the zine, I think I've been able to really like see that, kind of like a lot of the books that I've got from 42nd Street, they were able to kindly purchase them for me. And like I've seen that come up again and again where like a young fierce woman, she's been turned down for rejection so many times, but she still pursued her kind of vocation and what she was interested in. And I was able to see that like obviously at the time she must have thought, oh no, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, but she still persisted. And obviously it was her persistence that got her like a page in this book. Or most of these women are actually dead but that their legacy still carries on. So I think that's what I'm able to see, like the kind of like microaggressions. It's not just because I think it's framed a lot in like kind of in like the racism, like racism kind of of course very important, but I think I'm able to see it like much more in my daily life, because I think I've been like more kind of aware of that now. So yeah, it's been quite a quite a good process, very good. And like you were saying before, like now that I have this kind of now that I have the tools, I can help another young person, or another person like get through that kind of fuzzy haze that they might not know about.
Yeah, I can hear there that idea of like having the tools to contextualize things. So there was a lot of like your experience that it felt like you already had a really deep understanding of it, and you could recognize that certain things were important, and you had that real pride in yourself, or that recognition that that was a moment where I claimed some agency and claimed some power, or did something that might have been unexpected for me, or that other people might have been surprised by, or that it might go against their expectations. But I can hear that through this process, that sort of contextualizing, learning about other people's journeys, and maybe being able to see the parallels and see that the value of that persistence, that tenacity, and how sometimes our experience of our context, whether that is our family or the culture that we're in, or the politics of the place that we're in, or a combination thereof, that those all have their roles. So there's as well as learning, there's often quite a lot of unlearning to do
Yeah.
within our own journeys.
Yeah. And Jane, I wanted to ask, is there anything which which you found within yourself?
Yes, great question. I have loved this process because I think it has reminded me of the value of like trusting the creative process, and so getting to witness your creative process has been a real joy in that sense, because I really believe that trusting the creative process and trusting the stories that we all have and having faith enough in those stories to allow them the space that they deserve and the development they deserve and the sharing that they deserve. I really believe in that. And yet it is sometimes easy to lose sight of that, especially in capitalism, when everything can feel very transactional, and I'll admit there were times in this process where I might have got a little bit like, okay, but what are we going to do, and will it be ready in time, and those kind of thoughts. And actually, like, I didn't need to worry, you were totally on it, the finished thing is beautiful. And that reminder to actually, this is a process, and the process itself is the journey, as well as the journeys that the process documents, if that's not too roundabout a way of saying it. And just getting that reminder to that I don't always have to like over control things. I can sometimes get like that about my creative process, that I can want to be over controlling. I can want to know what the outcome it is before I've got there, and then of course if you do that, you make it be something different, whereas actually trusting it to unfold, you get to a much more authentic place. And I think you really doing that has reminded me of the value of that completely.
Wow, like that's so powerful, because like it's like you're seeing it from like your point of view. Like it's quite nice to hear that, because I felt like one thing which I really liked was that, whenever I was stuck, you literally like left the door wide open, for me to come to for anything. And I think that was so like it was so needed, because like a lot of times I didn't know what I was doing, but whenever I'd be like, oh, Jane, like, please could you like check over this? You're like, yeah, like, and then you did it like within like 2 hours. I was like, wow, like thanks so much, Jane. It was so nice for you to like to read your edits and like to hear what you think as well. It was so important.
I think though, I would like to think that hopefully what that gave was just like cheering you on. The material was totally there, like, but I think with that, I'm really pleased that was useful, because it is so easy to doubt ourselves when we're in a creative process, and especially a creative process which doesn't have a clear template. As you said, like, you looked at other zines and you looked at books, but none of them will be your story, of course, because your story is yours. And I think your zine's really original, but it is different to a lot of other zines that I've read, that are what we might call zines, personal zines, but these very telling a story for the sake of telling it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but as I say, the fact that yours is so reflective and really gives something to the reader and gives them this like jumping off point for their own journey. I think it's really different to other zines that I've seen. So when you're sort of off-roading, as it were, if you've not got a map, it's at least good to like have a friend and maybe a torch, and like hopefully I provided a little bit of being the friend and being the torch, and then you were off, you drew your own map and you followed it, and it's brilliant to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes they're just like stumbling around in the dark, or certainly that's how I feel on some of my creative projects. So this one was really nice to be part of in that sense.
Yeah, and also, Jane, I wanted to say like hopefully like we can like stay in touch and like
yes,
I wanted to
definitely.
ask you, yeah.
Definitely yes. I would love that.